Okay, so I thought I'd do a little video to bring the attention to some things that we as mechanics or engine builders or tuners, more like it, is going to come down to a tuning thing, what we have to deal with, right? Now, as a tuner, we get cars that people build in their garages, right? And we're expected to tune them to whatever the modifications that the guys have done, which is fair enough. Some guys want to save some money on labour and so forth. That's fine. We understand. But this is where it gets confusing or interesting, or us as tuners can get caught out, right? Now, I had a car come in where the customer had done majority of the work himself. He pulled the heads off. It was an LS, VE LS cam job, right? He'd done everything bar fitting the camshaft, timing chain, oil pump. He wanted us to do that, so we timed it all right for him. He wasn't confident in doing that, but he replaced the lifters, gaskets, heads, cleaned everything up, blah, 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 done all that stuff, right? He started the car, made sure it all ran, everything was fine. He brings the car into me. He goes, put the camshaft in, do what you have to do, then tune it. Now, that's fine. I don't not condone that. I totally condone that. That's fine, no problem. Now, we were fitting the oil pump up, and as always, we were limited on time, so we were probably going to not take the sump off and change the oil pump that way, because he supplied us with a single heavy duty chain, so we didn't really have to take the sump off, and we were going to sneak in the pump onto the pickup and go for it. But I noticed there was water in the sump. Obviously, when you're taking the engine apart or whatever, all the coolant that's in the water. So I made the decision. I said, look, for what it's worth, let's just pull the sump off, give it a clean, right? Now, while my worker was giving the sump a clean, he found these two bits of metal in the bottom of the sump. Now, I know very well that casting mark. I've seen it a million times. Here, I see it all the time, right? Now, that's piston. I know that's piston. But what's even more interesting is that little thread there. Okay? That's an M6 thread. I can tell a mile away. I've seen it before, and no jokes aside, I've done it too, right? I've had a bolt fall into a cylinder before and left that indentation in a piston. So I'm not going to hide anything, right? No dramas. Okay, so I know that thread. So we clean the sump out, and unfortunately I don't have the bolt, but the customer has taken the bolt, right? But there was a M6 thread, M6 bolt for the ignition coils, folded over in a 180 degree bend. It was a U-bolt, right? Now, we looked underneath, we pulled the, it was at that point I decided to pull the windage tray off on the caps, and this is what cylinder 2 looked like underneath. Right? Now, as you can see, that bolt has gotten stuck in there. It's cracked that. It's come over this side. It's broken that. It's done some damage, right? Now, this car here was a sump away, me bolting a sump on, putting some oil in it, and starting it up and getting ready to put it on the dyno. Now, if I didn't find these bits, right, and I put this car on the dyno and started tuning it and revving it and doing what I had to, how long do you think that's going to last? Not very long. And you know what's worse? When it goes boom, guess whose fault it is? Exactly. Now, you have to try prove. Obviously, we would have inspected and found the bolt in the bottom of the sump, but what was even better was the customer was here when we were cleaning the sump out. Okay? Now, we got lucky. As a business, we got lucky, because let me tell you, a lot of guys that tune cars for a living can get caught out like this. And I've seen some guys get caught out like this, okay? Customers do their work. This customer started the car at his house, right? Before he brought it in. He started it with a standard camshaft. That car ran. Let me tell you, that's when that damage was done, okay? Now, obviously, when he's had the heads off, he's dropped a coil bolt down into the sump, into the engine, and it's made its way down into the sump. And that's what's happened. Or it probably sat in between the crank and the rods, and obviously on startup it's done that, right? So let me tell you, we got lucky, okay? And unfortunately, we don't like having customers get upset with blowing engines up, yeah? So luckily, we've saved a catastrophic situation for both us and the customer. So just a bit of a bit of bringing it to the foreshore of the light or something, just making it a bit obvious to everyone that, guess what, guys, this can happen to anyone, right? Make sure 110% before you drop a car off that none of this stuff is broken, or I don't know. It's a sticky situation where some guys get caught in, man. And unfortunately, I'm sure there's guys that might comment or share this and say, yep, it's happened to me. It happens all the time. But please, man, please, if you're going to do work at home, be careful, man. Be careful, because the last thing we want as business owners is to get caught out on this, and then, having a shit fight on our hands to prove who was right, who was wrong. Because that's unfortunately how reputations are ruined, and word of mouth is a dangerous thing too when you upset someone like this, So please be careful, guys, and yeah, peace out.